Hi, everybody. Most of you have come to past meetings, but I think some of you are coming for the first time. So welcome to everyone. Um, Obviously, I'm Hallie. This is our monthly meetup. The focus of today's meetup is marketing ops. This is a topic that has come up in the past, but always kind of been pushed down, prioritized before other more growth related topics. And sort of late breaking news, we have a special guest. Trish McInerney is here, and she is a marketing ops guru expert in EdTech specifically. And so we're actually going to start with her introducing herself. She does offer services to EdTech companies, and I have found that the best sort of meetups we've had, for me anyway, have been when an expert joins and we can all kind of dig in and ask questions. So I had put some questions in like my LinkedIn posting and on the community, the things that kind of are top of mind for me. But this is an open forum as usual. I just want it to be valuable to everyone. So I am going to stop sharing and I'm going to turn it over to Trish and she can introduce herself and then we can dig in and open the floor and get into some marketing ops questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Hallie. It's awesome to be here. Really looking forward to meeting all of you and having some great discussions. As she said, my name is Trish McInerney. I have been in the marketing ops world for over 10 years now, working with an EdTech, information security, industrial companies, kind of all over the place. I really enjoy getting to work with smaller to mid-sized companies, just kind of being an extension of their team that they can't necessarily or don't have the budget or need to have a full-time person in-house. So that's really where I come in, just kind of being your extension, your go-to person for all things marketing operations. I put together a few slides just to highlight really marketing ops, why it matters, a few best practices that I am always sharing with my clients day in and day out, and then also what I offer personally. If there's anything that you want to tackle question-wise at the end, happy to answer as much as I can, and then also happy to set up another session if there's interest. So getting right into it, marketing ops, why does it matter? From my experience, having both your marketing and sales teams working together is probably not the easiest thing in most organizations or companies, but having them aligned on all of your processes is really like having a well-oiled machine. So reducing a lot of manual effort, reducing time, reduces overall costs, improving your lead flow. So when sales does receive any type of leads, they're not pushing them back saying that they're not good quality and not in their wheelhouse. That overall alignment also creates that single source of truth, which I think is overall very important, especially when it comes to reporting and being able to accurately report on ROI for all of your marketing initiatives. A lot of common challenges I see across industries and organizations is a lot of disconnection with any of your marketing tools, so your tech stacks. If your systems aren't aligned, just like your teams aren't aligned, they're not going to talk to each other. So we lose a lot of data when our systems are not integrated properly. And then with that also comes bad data, incomplete records, which at the end of the day kind of holds us back from being able to properly personalize our messaging and outreach to our potential customers. Another challenge, obviously, is limited resources and bandwidth. When you have a smaller team in-house, you're wearing so many hats that some things fall by the wayside. So having an extension or someone that you can go to for additional or ongoing support is always helpful. And then especially one thing that I see a lot is lack of documentation, not only standard operating procedures, but also just standardization across your tech stacks where it comes in to naming conventions, your campaign hierarchies. All of these things play a large part in being able to report properly. So when leadership asks for a report, you should be able to easily be able to pull it together and not have to kind of pull and pick from different parts of your systems because your standardization down to naming conventions, campaigns are not properly done. Talking to documentation, obviously one of the best practices I like to preach is keeping everything outlined and updated in place. So let's say you leave your company, you want the person coming in after you, or if you have a new hire, you want them to fully understand how you're running your systems to keep anything, from preventing messy systems, but also, again, going back to that key component of being able to consistently report on all of your marketing activities. And then automating those repetitive tasks. So if you're doing a lot of manual imports, assignments, notifications, understanding the different automations, workflows that you can set up within your marketing tools to alleviate you from having to spend too much time there. And then one of the largest areas I find customers are needing support is with their database cleanup. So a lot of times you're going to see bad data, old data, that's going to ultimately have you spending more in the grand scheme of things. A lot of systems you pay per contact or you pay per email or email send. Being able to clean out on a regular cadence will avoid wasted spend there. And then lastly, just streamlining your tech stack, understanding what is talking to each other, maybe get rid of some integrations that are no longer being used, which obviously will cut down on cost and ultimately improve adoption. So what I offer on a day-to-day, I do a lot of platform implementation and integrations with Salesforce, HubSpot, account engagement, Eloqua. I also offer ongoing support where it comes to maybe a system cleanup, any reporting, dashboard creations you need, and then obviously campaign strategy and execution. So helping you outline your campaign strategy from start to finish, and then at the end being able to report on how effective that was. And that is me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well, I am sure I can speak for all of us when I say that I can relate to all those challenges that you went over. I think those are shared across companies. So I'm going to kick things off with my own question, which was on my LinkedIn posting. Trish, what do you find is the easiest way to report against metrics when you're pulling them from many different sources? So what I have found is that no matter what I try, they always end up being manual ultimately. So like if I need to bring together the full funnel, even trying in HubSpot, like it's never quite right. And then also like comparing it against a prior time period or comparing it against goals and seeing how you're tracking against goals. Like any which way I try it, I just end up in a Google Sheet. What advice do you have on that note, Vinny?
So I actually just worked with a client who migrated from HubSpot over to account engagement in Salesforce. Now, typically I wouldn't recommend that jump just because HubSpot has so many great features, but what we were able to do in Salesforce is with the use of UTMs and setting up forms to track maybe Google Ads, we're able to pull all of the metrics into a Salesforce dashboard. So we're seeing all of the sources that are coming in from Google Ads, organic traffic, social traffic, and then email marketing, and then being able to break it out with the use of campaigns in Salesforce and see that kind of that year over year breakout that you're looking for. Now, of course, Salesforce is a big spend. So if you don't have that, There are, I'm trying to think, Kiss Metrics is one that I've used in the past. There's another tool that is blanking me right at the moment, but that is the main challenge, is being able to pull in all of those sources. But if you do have Salesforce for one, or in HubSpot, are you able to, for what you're working on, Hallie, are you able to use any UTMs to be able to better track at a granular level for source?
Yes, but actually we're still using a Google Sheet.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think about why that is. We're actually like just getting started on tracking things more granularly.
Mhm.
It's actually the org is moving in a B2C direction. But I think it comes back. I think your point about Salesforce is good because it kind of just comes down to the systems that you have. So, like another organization
Right.
have a bunch of systems that are all disconnected. So, of course, you have to bring them into one source of truth using a different platform. I don't think there's any way around that. Um, Other than maybe like Kissmetrics or what about Looker? Have you used Looker, Google's Looker
I
tool?
I haven't. I've used Tableau. That's another one that you can kind of set up to push all of your data into one.
Yeah,
The UI isn't great in my opinion, but it is very powerful in terms of all of the data you can pull in.
right. Anybody else want to chime in on this answer? These success stories, systems? And I will make the big caveat that these are small companies that I'm working with, right? This does not apply for larger orgs that have a database developer and full implementations of Salesforce and all that.
I'll say coming from like Riverside, which is a pretty big org with a lot of resources, and they had HubSpot set up, they still were pulling things into Tableau to do the reporting because there was still so much that wasn't coming through into HubSpot for what we wanted to do. So, and even then, it wasn't. Some of it was manual, even doing it through Tableau. So, like this challenge is, I mean, maybe somebody on here can just fix it for us, but I think it's
I
tough.
mean, it seems like it's just ripe for AI, right? It's like it just does not seem like something we should have to do manually. But all right, I'm going to open the floor. I kicked off the questions. Now I open it to you all. What questions do you have for us, for the group? And if no one chimes up, I always have questions.
I mean, I'd also be interested in, if everybody else is doing manual type things, like, is anybody doing like happy with what they have or what they've set up? I mean, you want this perfect world where everything flows and there's beautiful reports and, life is so good that you're just eating bonbons every day. But, is anybody happy with what they have set up?
I have really liked some of the Salesforce reporting in the past, and none of the orgs I'm working with right now are using Salesforce. So that was a good reminder because I like that you can put in on the dashboards your target for the quarter and then have that little dial, that shows you your progress towards it. And you can also like see the bottom line growth towards revenue. So I do like that. I'm a huge supporter of HubSpot. But it does just kind of have its limitations on the reporting side. But I'd say of the two systems that I've used, those would definitely be, I mean, and those are the gold standard, right? Those are like the best, most commonly used, I think, options. But yeah, what do others think?
When I hear the word Salesforce, it brings tears to my eyes because my company is currently using NetSuite and none of the info, it's heinous. It's like a clay tablet and I'm pounding against it and none of the info flows well from Marketo to NetSuite. So I continue to create a case for Salesforce. And we're also going to be setting up a new instance in Marketo because unfortunately, at a small company, we've had so many contractors coming in and updating Marketo in ways that aren't pulling data accurately. We have 16 different spreadsheets that are pulling from sources, and the data isn't accurate coming from each. So we're actually just going to start over in Marketo because we've decided there is no hope in the existing setup, create a brand new instance and go from there. And then I'm working towards this idea of getting Salesforce, which shouldn't be that new and exciting. But with the budgetary constraints and the way things are, it's going to be a long time coming. So we are using, Looker dashboards. We're using Google Sheets. We're using so many different areas. It takes so much manual work. We're trying to use AI to reduce some of the manual work, but we have so many different outputs, and there's still so much gray area with our data. I think this isn't like a first, second, third things to do in order to clean things up. I think it's a bigger question of what we can do when, so all the parts and pieces are talking. So I'm going to be doing a lot of listening today to figure out the best way to move forward with the existing systems we have. But yeah, Salesforce, oh so dreamy, and HubSpot.
Never thought someone would put Dreamy and Salesforce together.
Yeah, I just left a company that was moving from they had HubSpot as their primary, and they were just moving to Salesforce, but they were using other systems all across website tracking and hotspot stuff. And it was just the goal of what they're trying to do is integrate it into Salesforce, but not all their tools did. So they had to get a bunch of new tools. And then on top of that, they were trying to layer AI. But the problem is just what you described, Randy, is the data was terrible in terms of like, or Jamie, whoever said, sorry, whoever was saying that, it was terrible data going in. And so they weren't getting good results on the AI. So it's like you almost, and I've taken it, I'm not an expert. I stayed at Holiday Inn Express and I took a couple LinkedIn learning courses on AI with marketing. And some of the base rock, like the bedrock foundations, is ensuring you have good data coming in and you have accurate data coming in, which in the K-12 space, open rates on emails are weird. We all know that. Click through, all that stuff isn't necessarily valid of what's going on with blockers and that kind of thing. So that's, yeah. And then like when I'm working contract with a small company in there, we just had a huge hour-long conversation yesterday about ensuring we're actually capturing the right information from that and how we're filtering it. And then we can use, because they wanted to jump right into some AI stuff. And I was like, time out, where's the data coming from? What are the pieces that we need to actually look at? What's a quality piece of data in terms of what our marketing strategy was? What are we trying to accomplish? So are we even tracking the right stuff? We had to go way back to the beginning of it, and have that conversation. So that's kind of like, as we're chatting today, I think like AI sounds great and fancy, but if
Mhm.
you're putting the bad stuff in, you're just going to get garbage out, and it's not going to change anything about how it's just another tool. When that's happened to me when I've used like Tableau and stuff too, like I put in my data all incorrect and the columns were wrong and I got a terrible chart and I was like, I can't use this because I have everything in the wrong place. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. But yeah, so it's fun. I'm the same way. Like I thought, ooh, Salesforce, I've used it before. I'm so excited. And as I was watching them implement it, they had a terrible like onboarding company that wasn't training them. They weren't integrating all the information correctly. They weren't bringing the customer data over right. It was a mess. And in a weird way, being laid off was like, oh, I don't have to deal with that problem. So it was a relief. But same, I don't have a job. But like it was a relief to not have to be in that web of craziness. So it wasn't some perfect like, ooh, if I get Salesforce, it'll solve all my problems. No, if you have all those problems, you might continue those problems if you don't have a real adult conversation about what is our data, what are we tracking, what are we looking for, how are we tracking it, like what is good data. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking, but that's just kind of where I'm going with this. When I'm happy to listen.
Also, this is completely different, like this is like a related topic, but like I think the point is well made about it's sort of like garbage in, garbage out, right? So even if you just like look at web analytics and all the AI scrapers, I'm like, I can't tell who's coming to our website, any given website, because there's a whole team of people around the country going to our website all the time that work for the company, right? You used to be able to filter by IP address when people worked in an office, but you can't do that anymore. It's very hard to cut through the noise. And I know it's not just an EdTech. So anyway, but let's take some questions from the chat. From Brandy, what AI tools are you using for data compilation and analysis? Do you mean like reporting? It's same, yeah. I mean, I'm not using any effectively, so I'll open it up to the floor.
I did a little bit with like spreadsheets and like standards alignments and things like that using just ChatGPT, and it worked until like there were too many like I could do it like state by state. Um I'm a big ChatGPT person, so I'm like trying to branch out in my world.
I am too. I just had a connection, just out of the kindness of his heart, compile information from provider directories on a website using a tool called Appify AI, which isn't necessarily like a marketing ops thing, but it's like a web scraper. But I didn't do it, and he really knows how to use it. So just for whatever that's worth. It's not data, but it is like contact information, which we are going to use for outreach. So, all right, next question. This is a good one. What is this for you, Trish? What's the clean slate tipping point? When you're working with legacy systems, past fractional support, what really would stand out to you? Like this is the appropriate point to step back and start fresh. When would you know? Basically, I think is the spirit of that question.
That's a great question. I would say when you no longer trust the data. So when you are pulling any type of reports and or sales knows, your leadership knows these data points aren't making sense, they don't align with what we've previously reported, then I think it's a good idea to then take a step back and start fresh. If you have, I would do also like a data kind of, I'm blanking on words today. It's Friday. I apologize. A look at your data in particular to see, how much is incomplete, how much is duplicates across, contacts, accounts, all of those, to see if you are seeing just different variations or even just junk data. A lot of times you'll see stuff coming in from form fills and too many people having the ability to do imports, and you're not sticking with those standardized naming conventions, things along those lines. So I think once you no longer can trust that data and you're not able to properly report on that, that's when I would say you would take a step back and see where you can go from there.
It sounds to me like you're saying you're recommending an audit.
Yes.
The word, yeah.
That's the word. That was the word.
That
was escaping me. And a lot of times you find yourself trying to fix the data manually as you're going. So much time. You're just wasting all of that time and money. So that is another one where it really always, for me, always comes back to the data.
This is such a huge topic now that we're diving into it, because then I'm thinking about like email validation tools.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like that's a whole thing. This is another great question from Ashley. If you want to pipe in, you're welcome to. But just making the case for marketing ops to leadership, this has been a tough one for me too. Or even like moving to different systems. How do you like, and I've even said, I just developed a landing page in HubSpot in 30 minutes, and this other tool took 8 hours. Like, I don't, there's an opportunity cost there.
Right.
And sometimes that doesn't work even, but yeah, what would you say?
The first piece is making a case for it. That is always a lot harder than one would think. I've been in several large organizations that we were just under marketing, or we were under actually revenue. Revenue ops is another big one that a lot of companies are branching out into now. If you don't understand the system, you are wasting your time, your company's time, and you need someone that understands how to use it, how to set it up for you and for your company's overall success. I think that's one way to broach that. And then let's say they don't want to create or carve out a team, getting you resources, whether it's education for yourself or even contractors to help you come in and sort things out, I think is probably an easier ask than asking for, a team of 1 or 2 folks to support operations. And then new technology piece, that is always a fun topic. I always give a pro and cons list, especially when it comes down to price. And then one thing you can always think of is, what's that website? Is it G2 Crowd that does the great comparisons? I always go there first to see what the comparisons are in terms of price, you know, how's the UI, what's the feedback from other users? That's always a good one to see. And then using that as a stepping point when you're talking to leadership.
That's great advice. What other questions do people have?
Not a question, but it's a statement that I've come to know being in so many small companies where they had such outstanding technical depth when it comes to like marketing ops and their tech stack in general. I've actually told folks to not hire first because I think we need a systems before people approach. If you don't have the right systems in place, it is really hard for folks to come in and be highly successful, especially at these quota carrying roles when they don't have the tech stack in order to do that. So that's always been an order of an operations that I keep reinforcing with companies to say, hey, we need marketing ops first, but what does that look like? What are the systems and tools? What are the interoperability between the two? So I found that's been my first step before I even have this conversation of the time waste and the spend, because I have 3 really remarkable folks that I'm working with, to Hallie's point, that are spending 8 hours creating a landing page through a very antiquated system when they can do that in 30 minutes. And it's not aligned to their goals or moving the business forward. It's just something they have to endure because of those tools. So even the existing folks kind of all leaning in to fix some of these problems and challenges. So always systems before people, and having the right people that understand the essential nature of these systems too is just mission critical. And I find it more and more as we move forward. Like, I don't even think about saying the words AI until we can get some simple things working together at this point.
Okay, I feel like Jamie you are masterful at managing up. And we maybe need to have our own session, because every time you come, you share some little nugget and you're basically managing up. It's you know, an analogy or a mindset or something. And I'm like, oh my God, that's genius. We need to learn from you, Jamie.
I was gonna add on to that, like the process too. So like you have to have the systems, but like to know what system to have, do you have the processes? Are they working? It's been interesting interviewing with different companies because I feel like they don't know what they want from marketing. So they're like, do I want like strategy and like go to market and campaign planning, or do I want operations? And I'm like, well, you need both. Like, do you have a plan that's working that you want to measure to see what's working and what's not? Or are you just be measuring something that's not working? You know what I mean? Like I feel like they want that report, like that magical report, right? That tells them what's working and what's not, when you have to have the strategy to know that too. So that's what's been really interesting. I feel like in this environment, there is so much high need for accountability that they want marketing ops to come in and give them that accountability, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It does.
That's a good point.
Some things are not attributable or don't have direct ROI. And that's tough too. They don't, you know, business, like the C-suite doesn't love that. What other questions?
I have a very, this is a very technical specific question, but we use Shopify for our orders. And that started because our company started years ago as a B2C company, and now we've moved B2E. So at one point, Shopify was feeding into, and I'm going back to what Trish was talking about systems talking to each other. So at one point, Shopify was integrated into HubSpot. The problem with that now, and they stopped doing it, because the problem with it now is it is literally feeding in. Like anybody who bought one product from us was feeding in. All the B2C people were feeding in addition. And we really want to make this more B2E focused. Does anybody know if there is a way when you're integrating those systems to kind of have it filter out? Maybe it's above a certain or below a certain dollar amount they don't feed in, or is it all or nothing? I guess it's my question. Is there a way to segment that? Because it's really, as you can imagine, it's really hard. So we're doing double duty, like you were saying, Trish. It's like, there's orders being put into, people are physically ordering from. The other thing is when we get school districts, most of them are still paying via PO, but there are some who will pay with their credit card. And I don't see that unless I'm literally going into Shopify, because those systems aren't talking to each other. So it is a lot of extra manual work, has been the theme today. And anyway, sorry, I'll stop babbling. I wanted to see if anybody has any words of wisdom.
So I think looking at HubSpot specifically, I do have a similar use case where they're feeding into Salesforce and just creating those unnecessary records that they were creating abandoned cart records that we weren't getting enough information for it to be valuable to us. So what I started doing was, on the Salesforce side, I would create a report with those, because I know Shopify kind of gives you some indication of what it is, whether it's a fulfilled order or whatnot, to track those and then just remove them. You could potentially do the same thing on the HubSpot side, creating an active segment to be able to review that data set and then mark them, whether a non-marketing contact or even just sending them to the recycle bin, so you can kind of weed them out. But if you wanted to keep the history on it, I'd say mark them as non-marketing contacts, so you have, you're keeping them, but you're not getting charged for them. That's one way I would probably approach that.
That's what I was thinking too. Workflow,
Yeah.
automation workflow, not to non-marketing contact. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Apologies if someone has already asked this, or if I ask this every time I get a chance, but Trish, anyone here, do you have worked with anyone who has Salesforce, CRM, and HubSpot marketing automation, and getting them to talk to each other?
Yes.
Because we have been working for over a year, and we finally have data pushing from Salesforce to HubSpot, but not pushing back from HubSpot to Salesforce.
Interesting. Okay. A lot of times that has to do with the integrate, and obviously I'm not trying to talk to you like you're an idiot here, but a lot of times that's just settings on the HubSpot side to say which way the data needs to flow, and then your field mappings for whatever objects you have syncing. So whether it's just contacts and opportunities or just contacts and accounts, there are settings that say only push data from HubSpot to Salesforce, or Salesforce to HubSpot, and or keep it both ways so they're constantly in sync.
That makes sense, because the people working on it are more Salesforce side people.
Okay.
So we may
Gotcha.
follow up with you after this.
Yeah, definitely. Happy to help there. I just finished setting up for a customer who just implemented HubSpot and integrated with Salesforce. So it is a little bit tricky. It's not as straightforward as you would think, but it really just comes down to settings on the sync side.
All right, Ashlyn has another really great question.
I can read it if you'd like me to.
Yes.
I promise.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, go for it.
Maybe I'm AI. So when you're evaluating solutions, marketing ops solutions specifically, be it, systems, people, how do you kind of work around your own boundaries and gaps in knowledge? Ops is huge and essential. When it's not your wheelhouse, it can be very intimidating to make that call on such a large investment that is so critical to your marketing organization, your success going forward.
I think that's a tough one, just because you don't know what you don't know, right? Kind of the point you're making, like what are the blind spots? So I did an evaluation, just if this is helpful. was about a year ago transitioning a marketing ops system, and I defined short, medium, and long-term goals, because I also find that in marketing ops, people in companies are very focused on short-term goals. But if you only focus on short-term goals, you're going to set up a system that in 3 years is a complete disaster because you didn't set up district and school orgs correctly or something like that, right? So one thought would be to, drill down on thinking about it like that. And then honestly, I would probably ask AI, what am I missing here? Is there something I'm missing here in terms of, so basically I did the business requirement, and then I looked at individual, this is actually in the community, if I can direct it to you. I looked at the individual tool and then gave it like a checkbox to see which tools accomplished the short, medium, and long-term goals and which ones didn't. And that made the decision pretty clear. I did have experience though with the tool that I wanted them to transition to, so I knew that it was going to fit long term. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that's kind of how I evaluated a tool in the past.
I second the short, medium, long-term goals. I think that's a really good way to break it up, so you're not feeling overwhelmed and also missing important pieces that you may just kind of freeze over if you're trying to hurry up and figure something out. And I think also I've definitely used ChatGPT to say, what am I missing here? This is my end goal. This is where I am. I know that there has to be some missing piece that I'm not figuring out. I do think with a lot of, whether it's HubSpot, Salesforce, account engagement, there are third-party blogs, websites, training resources out there. A lot of them are not even gated, that I found, that are very helpful. I know I bookmark everything I find just in case I need to go back to it. But not that we have all hours in the day to kind of read through different white papers and whatnot, but there are a lot of resources out there. And I think even just starting with ChatGPT, I call him Chatty G. He lists out plenty of resources that I probably wouldn't have found if I just tried to Google it. So.
I was going to say that too about leaning on the network's experience. You can always go to the EdTech community and post your question and see if anybody answers. Larissa, did you want to share anything about your comment?
No, it was just reflecting on the fact that integration is hard. I'm newish. Sorry, I'll come back off on video too. On video, I'm just having some fights with my computer here. Yeah, I'm newish to this space, and it's just been really interesting to me. Somebody literally said to me a couple months back when I was complaining about the structures and systems, they were like, well, they shouldn't have hired somebody from Northern California because you're 10 years ahead of us. So that was the thing. I'm having a lot of discussions with folks as I'm like, system structures, integration, this stuff works. Technology can work for us, not against us. So it's just been entertaining. And I think whoever had said that integration, I think everything's just hard, right? We just got to remember that it's really, really hard. And people get frustrated and stop trying these things. And then the person who's that squeaky wheel, everyone's like, why are you wasting your time with this? But it's because we want technology to work for us, not against us. So.
It is easy to feel like you're the insane one when you're in that situation, when you're just surfacing things of like, no, this is going to be an issue 2 years down the line if we don't fix it now. And everyone else is telling you, well, like, oh, is it really that big of a deal? Or, well, we'll fix it down that point. Like it does feel, it's so easy to just feel as though, maybe I am overthinking this, but realistically, you know that you're not.
I was just having a conversation with my husband this morning, and we were talking in general. And I said, now I'm old, but I was like, when I first started working, I feel like there were more people in higher level positions that were thinking long term, like that were thinking a few years down the road. And I just feel like that has fallen by the wayside, and there's not as much strategic, like where and I know things have to pivot and change. I mean, that's always been the case, but there's nobody really doing the work to, like, now to kind of take things forward at many companies. And it's all like reactionary. and putting out fires. And, maybe long-term thinking is like 6 months down the road or a year down the road. It's not 5 years down the road. So that's just, Ashley, when you said that, that's what it reminded me of that conversation we were having. So I don't care what industry you're in. It feels like it's all industry.
For what it's worth, one thing I did, Ashlyn, at another org, you know when you like feel you're like, do I really know what I'm doing? And then you guys ask these questions, and I feel like I have an experience from all these different places I've worked in the past. But I call it the marketing slog, like building campaigns, building emails, QAing the email, making sure the button is the right color and has the right rounded corners and all that stuff, right? It takes forever. And the automation workflows and making sure they do the right thing and leads get routed and all of that. I outlined all the steps that it took to do one activity, and it summed up the amount of time it took and then said, do you want us to be spending 25 hours on one email per week? Because this is what it is. This is what's included. This is what it takes right now. And if we're going to scale, then we're not going to be able to follow these same 27 processes, right? So I just don't think people have any idea the level of detail that goes into all the marketing slog. And so maybe outlining and educating them on it will help. I will say nothing changed when I did that. So it took a couple of years. It took, a larger team. And I think people saying that repeatedly, I was the first marketing hire. So, sometimes it takes a while.
Holly, to your point too, I think one of the biggest challenges is threading the needle from all of the hours and that extra time it takes to why leadership should care and make a change now, because they might not see what this will look like 6 months to 12 months down the line. So what I've been doing lately, if you are working at a company that has the very grand, like 4 or 5 pillars that they're working on, the big rocks for the year, I tend to take those. And one of our recent big rocks at my company is accelerate agility, align, adapt, and amplify. Glittering generality of what we're going to do to become future proof as a company, right? There is no strategy behind that currently that has been shared. So what I'll do, I'll take something like Hallie had talked through, that these are the 26 steps to send an email. We want to have the agility to do this within 24 hours and make a triggered email series X. Here are the challenges. Here are the people involved. Here are all the levers that we need to pull just to do something that should be so simple. And since we're moving towards this, I would like to partner with you on this project that I'm going to be spearheading to help us accelerate agility. Would you be my partner in that? And can we move forward together? So sometimes what it does to them, and this has worked at some orgs, I'm not sure, it remains to be seen if it's going to work at the existing org that I'm in, is make them feel like a partner in something that's going to put a feather in their cap, because these are the C-suite objectives that haven't been articulated. And then they can use it as a lighthouse standard of how we reach this at the end of the year for their retro and feel a part of it. So I've been really trying to pull at those, because oftentimes when I tell them about like technical challenges, they see it as minutia in the small things. And that sounds like a you problem or a marketing ops problem, or don't we have Jeff over there and data that can just fix this for you, Jamie? So that kind of makes it, I want it to feel like everybody's problem and not something just specific to my marketing team. And so that's what I've been trying to do to get more light on our very hairy situations that we have from a MarTech stack problem.
Here she is managing up effectively, like I said, you guys. We have a few more minutes. Oh, okay. Ashley, you want to share what you just said?
Yeah, so this is just something I've found helpful in the past, and it's not just specifically on marketing activities, but like meetings. We've got 10 people on this meeting. Was that a worthwhile use of, $10,000 basically, just with the salaries of the people that are involved? So if this is a marketing activity that you want, and it takes me this many hours to accomplish it, this is the cost. Is that a worthwhile investment of our time?
Coming to Jamie's point too, like framing towards the solution, right? Like if we fix this now, then we will be able to do X, which will get us to Y, right? What else?
Can I bring up a slightly divergent question, or like kind of related to something that Trish had shared earlier, just made me think of this?
Go for it.
Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna launch. We'll see, y'all. If everyone's like, no, that's fine too. Whatever. Boundaries are good. So it kind of made me think of this as you were talking about things, Trish, about like that integration of sales and marketing and kind of the functional overlap. I would like to like get people's thoughts on this. I think my current situation is I'm in a space where my title is sales, my function is marketing, and there's not a lot of understanding around that, which has created a lot of like tension. I think like as I'm, asking for things that very clearly are marketing functions but don't exist because that is my function. There's just like there's a lot of big questions out there. So I'm just curious if there are like any strategies or ways of thinking about that when it's like by name in one division, by function in another, and just kind of going about that. I also want to frame that because I most recently have like truly been in nonprofits and education for most of my career. Like I'm not a like wait for help kind of person. I'm like, okay, cool. I have a couple days. I will figure a thing out. And that's definitely not the dynamic here. So I'm just curious what experience people have had in that space when you've had kind of weird overlapping roles. Like, I don't know, just any senses of ways that I can think about that strategically in terms of how I'm asking for things or communicating what I'm working on when people don't really probably agree what that should be.
Larissa, I think I understand the question or the challenge you're facing. I've had similar experiences in orgs where they didn't do a great job defining roles. And oftentimes they were taking generalizations in names. Like, for example, they say, hey, you're the director of demand gen, so can't you do X, which is completely outside on the sales side related to MQLs. So recently, and this sounds absolutely bizarre, but I did an all revenue presentation called What is Demand Generation, and talked about the different stages of the funnel and what the handoff looks like to sales to create a clear picture of what I do, what I could do, and the partnerships between other teams. And what I found was, because I thought it was going to offend a lot of people, 90% of my rev team does not know what demand gen is. And I know there's a million different definitions. So once I level set there with that, it became more clear of the expectations, what things were being asked of me, and what I could also do to drive success across other teams. And it was a really high level presentation. It wasn't technical and like, I'm so smart, here are the things that we're going to do. It was a presentation on an extended metaphor called What is Demand Gen? And it started with taking someone on a first date. And when we go on a first date, we're not talking about ourselves. We're interested in connecting with them, learning all the things. So it was talking about top of the funnel psychology. And then people were like, oh, wait. And so you're doing that through campaigns. And it was really nice for the whole org, from like customer success and a lot of teams that just hear the term and repeat it and don't know it. So if you could get to a really high level to talk about that, sometimes it helps people help you, so you don't have to define that and feel like you're being pushed and pulled and you're in a square peg in a round hole. And then maybe they'll have a better understanding of why they hired you and how they could utilize you too, just through your own articulation of the problems you solve.
So glad Jamie's here today. Yes, Brandy. I know. Let's start with.
That's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard.
That's a topic for another day. Any last question? I have a specific question that maybe it's easy, maybe it's simple. I don't know. I actually have not had to tackle this one recently, but I would just remember it from the past. And I'm a little bit concerned because there's a brand new company that's launching into the US this next week. And I don't want to mess up the HubSpot instance. It's about district and school org structures and making sure that the schools roll up to the district appropriately in HubSpot specifically. So Trish, I know I talked to you about this offline and I said that this was one of the things I was worried about and that I wanted to make sure I set it up correctly. Is it easier than I'm making it out to be? Is it just like parent and child? Is there anything else specifically to know? Anything in that topic you could share?
In my opinion, it is as easy as parent-child. I set that up previously. I want to say it was on the Salesforce side, but obviously can be done in HubSpot. And I think in terms of reporting, you do have the ability in HubSpot, especially to report on, companies associated with another company. So you'd be able to see what that roll-up looked like from a reporting perspective as well.
Would it be set up through like PID? Like, would the school get connected to the district through an ID from like a data, like through Agile or something like that? Like, how do you set up the child to parent?
So you would have to set it up first. So you would create the parent first, and then with that parent ID, then you would associate the child to that. So even if they're already in the system, you can still set it up. You just have to, export them all and then make the association and then re-import them and associate. So
Okay.
it would be the parent ID, and then you can relate a company to another company, and that relation would just be all the children would have the same parent.
Okay, we're gonna probably take this offline. I'm gonna show you some files and we can
Okay.
figure it out before I jump in. Well, we are at 10:54 Pacific time. Thank you so much, Trish, for coming and being our expert on this call, and everyone else for chiming in, asking questions, engaging, participating, all that good stuff. I will post the recording, and everyone have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. And we have one more meetup for the year, and then November and December, obviously, we won't be having them. So hopefully I'll see you guys in October, last Friday, same time, same place.